Me somehow kept the portal hidden from me on the way in, and I didn't actually see it until I was back out again. I had terrible nightmares for years, and still haven't come to grips with what happened. My fingers are trembling and the hair is standing up on the nape of my neck as I write this. Severely shaken, I've read everything I could get my hands on about people who have mysteriously disappeared throughout history, and discovered several instances where people have vanished in plain sight of others. The quantum physics people have a theory about parallel universes. They just might be right. Since I originally wrote this, report number 9202 from Sutter County, California was submitted to the BFRO. The person who submitted the report drew a picture of a creature he saw in a tree. The right hand in the picture is exactly the same as the one I saw, note the thumb placement, and the forearm of the left arm is exactly like the forearm of the creature that attacked me.
Any way you could post the pic from that thread. Very cool story though. Really lines up with my own theories.
Here's the pic the passage refers to. It's hosted on a different website, not on that actual thread. About a year ago my brother, and 3 of our friends decided to go on one of those camping trips where we wanted to go all out. We planned on being out a week and partying and doing what 20-somethings do while camping. So using Google Maps we find this awesome looking spot just south of Taos, New Mexico. So after we finished loading up the truck with tools and the camping shit we already have, we dropped by Walmart and bought a bunch of shit including ammo and 5 of those cheap kerosene lanterns and some citronella oil. These would later prove to be a lifesaver. And in true/K/Omando fashion we brought a shit ton of guns. I had my AK, and my brother had a 9130 SKS, a cheap 12 Coach gun, and one of my friends had a Winchester 1200. When we got there we barely managed to set up camp before it got dark. The place we found was a clearing about 500 feet by 200 feet. We situated our camp at the north end of this clearing in a cul-de-sac of trees. The first night we were there much drinking was done and much fun was had. The following day we ate some shrooms and tripped balls. Now it was when the sun went down on the second day that things started to get weird. So I'm sleeping in my tent when one of my friends, we'll just call him James, pokes his head inside my tent and tells me to get up and look at something. So right away I decide to check my phone to see what time it is, and of course it's fucking 3:46 a.m. I get out of my tent. The moon was fairly bright so it was easy to see where James was standing. He motioned for me to come over and then pointed at a dark object hovering just above the trees about 400 yards south of where our camp is. Now the odd part about this was that the forest was fucking silent. The object then moved southeast and descended behind a ridge. At this point we've been out for a half hour and decide to get back to sleep. So in the morning we are talking about it and there are many jokes made about probing and Galens. I finally convinced the others to come with me to investigate the areas where we saw the object. The first place we went to was the spot in the woods where we saw the object hovering. We don't find anything unusual except for an overpowering chemical stench in one area. Now everyone is kinda weirded out at this point, so we go back to camp and get into the truck because there was a road that goes over the ridge where we saw the object descend. The road didn't go anywhere near where we saw the object, so we got out and followed a ravine as far as we could, but the area was too choked with underbrush to get through. We get back to camp around 5 p.m. and everyone is talking about the weird smell and the object. I tell everyone I'm gonna take a nap and to wake me up when they have a fire going. Now I wake up around 8 p.m. because they didn't wake me up like I asked. So we get the remaining hots out of the cooler and have awesome campfire food. So an hour passes when we hear a low-pitched humming sound that isn't coming from any particular direction. It goes on for about 10 or 15 minutes then stops abruptly. Now everyone is a little freaked out, but we're also kind of excited because shit's going down. Eventually we all decide to go to sleep except James, who wants to stay up. We awaken to the sound of a fire being rapidly put out. I get out of the tent and see James stomping on the fire he had going. I ask him what the fuck is going on and he tells me to shut up, so I glance over and notice the same dark object about 250 yards southeast of our camp. I fucking freak out because this time is flanked by 2 dim blue orbs that are moving around erratically. At this point everyone is awake and are trying to load our weapons as quietly as possible. We abandon the camp and move into the tree line. We circle around the clearing, remaining hidden in the trees trying to get a better look at the object. However, it is at this point my brother and the friend with the Winchester 1200 get separated from the group. I decide to stop because the object has now moved to the edge of the clearing opposite of our camp and the blue orbs seem to have disappeared. We lay motionless in the trees for about an hour watching the object and I just about shit my pants when I suddenly smell the chemical stench. The minute I smelled that stench, I'm thinking to myself, oh god, I hope 7.62 by 39 will kill an alien. Now we were all within arm's reach of each other, and we were certain that the other two took off on a road to the north, while we had moved west and south, so when we heard rustling coming at us from the south, everyone shit a brick. Out of the corner of my eye I see James raise the missile, so I turn to see what he's aiming at. A tall figure is moving in the woods less than 100 feet from where we are huddled. Now I can't say for sure, but it was taller than any one of us and its proportions were completely wrong for a human. James fires the missile at it and there is an unsettling shriek as it runs off into the woods. Not wanting to stay and find out if there are more of them, would take off down the road to the north, and after about a half mile we find my brother and our other friend. They heard the gunshots and were on their way back to see what happened when we ran into them. I was adamant about not going back to the campsite until morning, and thankfully everyone else agreed. Morning came all too slowly, and we waited until it is nice and bright out before returning to the camp. When we got there, our camp had been trashed and the stench was fucking everywhere. It was so bad that it started to burn my nose. But the strangest thing was the sensation of heat and a metallic taste when I got close to the truck, so I opened the door, get on the floor, everyone walked the dinosaur.
Were there any lights on it, or was it just a silhouette?
It was a silhouette and it looked roughly elliptical, but it was very difficult to determine the actual shape because it was silhouetted against the stars.
Oh shit, nigga. Were they flashlights?
No, they were definitely not flashlights. They were 80 feet in the air and moving around fast. Here is one from the land down under. I was shooting camels halfway between Ayers Rock and Peterman in the Northern Territory. 3 of us got a 45-70 falling block Ruger, model 70 in .308 and a T3 in .308. You have to realize that this is sparse country. Population density is less than 0.01 per square kilometer. When you go out into the desert, you are alone. No one is coming for you and you can die very easily. Think 42 plus C temps. Anyway, we have had shit luck with the camels and decide it's time to lay up cause it's getting colder. By the time it gets dark, we are only 200 meters from vehicles and camp. As we crest over dune, we spot a light between the vehicles, using them as windbreaks. Who the fuck is there and what the fuck are they doing? We all chamber up and head down towards camp. Get within about 50 meters and yell hey. Ball of light rises about 3 to 4 meters off the ground. Takes off into the distance, tracing over the top of the desert, rising and falling with the dunes. Would have been going about 100 kilometers an hour at least. We set off for Peterman, Aboriginal community, straight away. By the time we get there, they have seen it too. The old fellas, red blokes in charge, didn't want us there, and explained they would love to protect us, but as long as we were here it wasn't going away. This scared me more than anything else. We headed to Uluru/Ayers Rock without incident. Every abo I ever talked to about it gets the major heebie-jeebs about it. I was exploring the woods some time ago, in northern Utah. After about an hour of exploring, I happened upon a building in a medium-sized clearing. The building had a large door and a fence around the back, where a tall tower was. I moved to it, and as I got closer, I felt strange. Time seemed to slow, and I didn't know where I was anymore. It felt like a good buzz. The door was made of some kind of hardwood, but I wanted in. I kicked the door as hard as I could, but to no result. So I took my trusty old Winchester 1897 and blasted the door open. Inside it was only about 900 square feet. There was papers all over, a lot of what appeared to be control consoles and viewfinder screens. There was posters of war propaganda and net-like all around on the walls, as well as a few older 45 bullets in the drawers. A old generator was in the corner. The newest date on anything I found was 1962. I climbed the tower, it had a flat top, and found a few rounds of 7.62, making me think it was an observations post. I think the tower was some sort of missile tracker/command. I got a story, been meaning to post this one for a while. This is back around 2006, early summer. I was just your typical 17-year-old kid. Parents moved around a lot back in those days, but we always ended up living beside large forests, woods, or prairie places. Done plenty of exploring, with and without friends. Ton of stories, but there's always one which makes you look back on with no definite answer in sight, no matter which way you look at it. But this is how it went down. Played a lot of video, and watched a lot of TV. Taps was big in these days. People respected them then, so you can see I was really taken by the whole let's go ghost hunting trend. One of my picks. Near my house there's this big urban forest, kind of like NY Park. split into 3 parts, Forest 1, 2, 3. Through the years, I had a couple strange unexplained events happen to me in them. Phantom smells, lavender, roses, simply faded away as quick as they came. At night, in Forest 2, which had a concrete foundation where probably a house once stood, me and a few friends would see brief bright flashes of light just erupt over our heads with nothing ever there for miles, too close down for planes. It actually lit up the ground around us like if it were a hovering camera flash. Of course, now that I look back on it might have been a hunter's camera gadget strapped to a tree or something, one's guess. More pics. Then there was Forest 3, which had a cemetery in it. Caught a ton of EVPs there, chilling ones. Most notable one, I asked, is there a heaven, a hell, why don't you call for God? And a young woman replied to me in a sad tone. There is no God. So there was some freaky stuff going on there. One day I woke up early in the morning, 4:30 a.m. between 5. I recently bought this cheap $70 digital camera from Walmart and was extremely bored with it. So I figured an early walk in the forest should provide me with some unique pictures, which they did if you want to see them. Probably not. But they're all from this day. And we'll post some, so I set out doing the same thing I've done probably 100 tons by now. I'm jaywalking down the streets and after a couple blocks hit the forest entrance, and dive in deep into her. I spend the next 15 minutes just heading to some known places I know would give me some good snapshots, so I take a quickie snap here. And another quickie snap here, thinking to myself, this is gold, son. All the while forgetting, the whole entire wood is empty, silent, desolate as I had ever seen it before. I usually run into 1 or 2 people by now, either jogging or walking their mutts, but nothing. It's a good day, I say to myself, let's carry on. So I head to this area called the safe zone. It's simply called that on account that it's wide, expansive with a little sand dune and a tall tree smack down in the middle of it, so if you're under that tree, you can pretty much see all paths that string together Forest 1. I'm there, so I decide, let's bam it to the lake. I pick a path from the safe zone and head for it. It is at this time I sense an eerie feeling in the air, like I'm being watched. I ignored it, because at that age I wasn't mature enough to that point where everyone learns to trust your gut, feelings, internal ringing alarm bell, whatever, stayed calm and carried. I hit the lake. I'm tired from walking like 45 minutes of miles, sun was out but casting gray skies with a sudden in and out drizzle between instances. I perked myself against the ledge underneath the cover of some trees and with a low battery on my camera just decide to hang out while staring bluntly out at this lake that, be my recollection, wasn't swamped by a heavy fog or mist not 5 minutes ago. First time I seen the place like this, I tell myself, frozen. I see a person draped in this loose sheet, what looked to be a black tarp, just simply spinning, and spinning around in circles in a pond bush of dogtails. His or her arms open widely as if praising something